So I'm delighted today to be joined by Gabriel Sutton. We're going to be talking all things League Two. Firstly, Gabriel, thanks for coming on.
It's my pleasure, Robert. Good to speak to you.
Yeah, it's me and Gabriel messaged quite a lot. This is the first time we've actually seen face to face over a computer, but nonetheless, good to see you. Good to speak to you properly rather than through Twitter.
Yeah, likewise. It's really looking forward to it.
Right, so we're going to kick things off. As the day of recording, it is Wednesday, the 12th of August. So last night came the big announcement that the EFL are deducting further points from Macclesfield, which will see them get relegated and Stevenage just staying up. So, Gabriel, what are your thoughts on that announcement yesterday?
Well, I think in terms of on-field matters, I think it's a huge let-off for Stevenage. They'd only won 3 games all season. And in that sense, no team that's won 3 games all season deserves to stay in the same division. I think really the issue is the financial issues at Macclesfield. That's mean they've had issues paying players over the last seasons, and that's hindered the managers they've had in the past. And I think from the EFL's point of view, they're probably going to be criticised more. And if Macclesfield were to go out of business under their watch, if you like, and I think from the EFL's perspective, they kind of want to make them the National League's problem, really. Because there's a lot of question marks over whether Macclesfield are going to get a takeover. And then what's going to happen then? Are they going to play with 23 teams? How many more clubs are going to go out of business? I think that's a massive worry for English football at the moment. So I'd just like to extend my real sympathy to Macclesfield Town fans. It's a horrible situation.
Yeah. You want a season to be determined on matters that go on the pitch.
Absolutely.
It's the game of football. But it feels like across the leagues this year, it's been the financial side of things. I mean, the Championship still, that's still not really decided what's going on. There's still inquests and things. In League One, obviously Bury took one of the places for relegation, and then you've got the problem that Bolton had alongside Southend. They've got their own problems. And then with League Two only having one relegation spot, and it's now been taken by off-the-field problems, it's a shame. You want football to be decided by the football. But
yeah, absolutely.
I really do feel for the club or for the fans and the players, because it's not their fault. But the issue I have is why it's taken the EFL so long to make this decision. It's the same crime had been committed for 3 separate months, and yet they've deducted them different points on each time, and then kind of realised that, that was unfair to have only deducted them 2 here, so we're now going to up it when we're, 4 weeks away from the return of kind of football?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of question marks over the EFL. And I think the other issue is there's the distribution of wealth, because you've got the EFL, and I think there's massive question marks over whether they've got the conviction and the leadership to actually stand up to bad owners and actually enforce the fit and proper persons test. I think you've got the FA, who in 1992 relinquished a lot of control over the financial governance of English football to the Premier League. So you're seeing the Premier League getting billions of pounds from companies from abroad in order to see the top league. So wages are getting inflated in the Premier League, and so the cost of players is trickling down into the Championship and then League One, League Two. But you're seeing in League Two that the income for clubs at that level isn't increasing in proportion with the increase in revenue in the Premier League. So you're seeing a massive disparity that's only going to grow unless the AFA actually grow some strength, say to the Premier League, you've got to invest a certain amount of money, put it back into grassroots football, put it back into lower league football, and even things out a little bit. And at the moment, the people who have the money don't care, and the people who might care a little bit about the situation don't have the money. And I think that's a massive problem that we're facing at the moment.
Yeah, there is no kind of, I mean, the proportions are way off, completely way off. And I think, however much I like the idea of the salary cap, it's something that if I look at when we reached the playoffs under Dean Smith, if we'd have got promoted and we'd have currently got this salary cap in, there is no way that we could financially go from that salary cap up to the championship to compete. The wages we'd have been given to then come back down. It's I don't know. I think it's going to be very difficult for League One clubs to make a real foothold in the Championship now. And if they do come back down, it's going to be so difficult for them to trim all of their squad back down to fit the salary caps. But I agree with them, with the EFL putting something in place. I just think that they should do it as a percentage of revenue rather than every club paying the same or having the same limit.
Yeah, I agree. I think the problem with the blanket cap is that it could affect the quality in the lower divisions. So there's players that Sunderland and Portsmouth and Ipswich might be able to afford that they now can't afford because of the salary cap. So I think there's certainly a problem in that sense.
And I mean, I know a lot of people have said that, oh, well, it will go back to kind of the days where it's about your coaching and your tactics, and which is great within that league itself. But there's got to be that. It's not just the League One and League Two season isn't just those 24 teams over and over again. You look at the Bournemouth situation where they went up through the leagues, and you kind of think, is that going to stop clubs being able to do that? Yeah, I don't know. I'm very undecided on the salary cap.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think I can understand where the idea comes from in principle, but I think in practice maybe it doesn't quite work.
So what did you think of last season's League Two? Did anyone pull up any surprises for you, whether at the right end or the wrong end of the league?
In terms of League Two, I mean, I suppose to a lot of people, Crewe Alexandra winning promotion would have been a surprise. I actually did tip them for promotion, so I might be slightly smug about that. I suppose the other thing would be Cheltenham as well. I suppose the common theme in League Two was that teams that had kind of stable squads that had a good sort of second half of the season tended to do pretty well. So Swindon had improved a lot under Richard Wellens. Crewe were the best team in League Two in the previous season after Christmas. Cheltenham had improved massively under Michael Duff, the home form, and him had been amazing before that season. And I think a lot of those players had kind of kept the core of the squads they had in place. And I suppose that's something that yourselves would take a little bit of hope from, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the difference in like summer kind of feeling and transfer is chalk and cheese. I mean, we've bought two in, or the last two videos I've recorded, we've signed a player. So who knows? I'll keep checking my phone for our third one of the run. But we've got a very good link with Bristol City. Darryl Clark obviously has connections in Bristol. So we've signed permanently Rory Holden, which, yes, it's a signing, but he knows the squad because he was with us last season. He actually wanted to come back, and I don't think, from the sounds of it and from what I'm hearing, I don't think Bristol City were really looking to sell him, but we also got in touch and kind of said we'd like him back permanently. He then went to the management and powers that be and said, I'd like to go back because it's a chance for me to play first team football consistently. And then they negotiated a deal and we've signed him. The other player we've got is George Nurse, who's on loan from City as well, who had a few offers, but because of Cameron Pring and Rory Holden saying, no, Walsall's a good place to go, you'll learn there, you'll play, you'll have your chance, if you're training well, you'll get your opportunity, he's decided to come to us. So I think we need three players. I think we still need a right back. and a right mid, because at the moment our only wingers are Wes McDonald and Jack Nolan. But
Well,
Nolan,
yeah, I mean, I was just going to ask actually, do you see Rory Holden as someone who's going to play behind the two strikers? Because he did play out wide at times last season.
I mean, he started off out wide and it wasn't working. He's not that. He's not a winger. But his better form came in that number 10 role. And in an interview with the club that's on their YouTube, he was asked about what his kind of ambitions are for next season. And he said, well, playing in that number 10 role. And so I would assume that that's the conversation that's been had with like Clark, and Clark said that he wanted a winger who was an out and out winger a couple of weeks ago. So the fact that we've then signed Holden, who's not an out and out winger, makes me think, right, we are still looking for one.
Yeah, because I mean, you have played Josh Gordon, I seem to think, out wide a little bit, but I feel like your best strike pairing is Gordon and Lavery, personally, even though Adebayo scored a lot of goals. I just think the movement and the combination seems to work with Gordon and Lavery.
Strangely, Lavery only got, I think, 4 league goals last season, but his all-round play is pressing, and I mean, he scored in the cups as well for us, which he scored 2 in like the Carabao and a couple in the FA as well. I'm not sure who our best 2 is, because Gordon and Lavery went through a really good spell together where it seemed that they were scoring or assisting between them and just having their own kind of party. But then this system where effectively Holden and Gordon were just swapping around a lot. So at times Gordon would be up top playing in that 10 role while Holden remained on the wing. But then at other times, dependent on the build-up, Gordon would be out wide and Holden would be in that 10 role. So there was definitely a system that worked and that they understood it, but I do feel that was sort of like right, we've got to make do with what we've got. I don't see that being the tactic for the season to come.
Okay.
But I mean, Adebayo, his improvement at the end of last season was incredible. I think he was very, very sad to see the season end, because I think him and Gordon were having a bit of a who's going to finish top scorer.
Yeah. I mean, I think Adebayo is a really good finisher. He proves that. Like, I think his minutes per goal ratio is probably best of the 3, I'd imagine. But I mean, I suppose Gordon play that wide a fair bit, which would be a factor. But just my experience of watching him, he can sometimes be a bit languid, whereas, as we've alluded to earlier, Lavery can contribute with his pressing, and I just like the link-up play with him and Gordon. And if I ring Darryl Clark cheese, I would maybe look at having Adebayo as kind of an impact.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, that's what he was doing well. He was coming off the bench, and I mean, a couple of his goals were within the 6-yard box, but he was there to score them. So it doesn't matter, goal's a goal. But I can't remember what game it was now. And he hadn't really been in the team much, and he started, and he was incredible. He covered every blade of grass. And there was him and Gordon up top doing that press, and it was like, wow, where's this come from? And it worked. But I think, keeping the squad together, everyone knows their roles. Obviously there'll be tweaks, but that's natural. But keeping the core of the squad together and looking at the amount of signings that other clubs are having to make, I'm quite happy that we've kept the squad that was showing top 7 form in the second half of last season.
Yeah, no, that is fairly optimistic. It's pretty much, I think it's top 7 form since like November time sort of thing too. I think that's
October we lost 6 in a row. Not good.
Yeah. No, I mean, it'd be interesting to see who you've got on that left side as well, because in terms of that top and on towards the right, you seem to have quite a few options. But I mean, you've brought in George Nurse, who'll probably play coming forward from left back, and you've got Wes McDonald as well, haven't you, on the left. So he'll be one kind of coming inside, maybe curling shots, and then sort of nurse overlapping.
Whatever Wes McDonald wants to do.
Yeah. That could be a decent partnership.
I think we need one right winger because we've got Jack Nolan who came from Reading, but he's only 18. He's only played a handful of games. And I get the feeling that he would have played a lot more at the back end of the season that's just finished to get him a bit kind of league experience. And I mean, he's shown a lot of promise. He looks like a good young player, but I think we need a starting right mid to obviously balance with Wes McDonald on the left. And then you've got Nolan who can play both wings.
Yeah, it'd be a good squad option then, presumably, Nolan, just have around.
If he starts 10, 15 games in the league, then that's a really good season for him. Right, so let's have a look at what we think could happen in League Two. I mean, it's still very early days. We've still got a month until the season starts and signings coming in left, right and centre. Who do you think is going to be, we'll start at the bottom and work our way up. Who do we think is going to be in the mix fighting out at the bottom of the league now that there's obviously going to be 2 spaces back for relegation?
Well, I think I have to say before this that I've got a season preview to come later in kind of late August period. So keep an eye out for that. So those will be my official prediction. But I think in terms of being near the bottom, Stevenage were obviously given a reprieve. I think they're going to have to be a lot better this season. I mean, in effect, there was no relegation battle last season because Macclesfield went down, even though they were actually well above the relegation zone in terms of the points they picked up. So I think from that point of view, there's teams near the bottom that have got to improve a fair bit. So yeah, I think Stevenage have got to sort of heed the warning that they've had, and I think there's a few teams like to thought potentially could be in a bit of bother, and there's a lot of instability at Oldham as well.
I think for me, the team that I think if I had to say 2 teams, I think you're right with Stevenage. It's interesting because their recruitment, you're recruiting for the league that you're in. And I think they've obviously recruited a team to get them out of the National League. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out because they've now got to be the team that stays in League Two. But I do agree they've got a big step up to make. And I also feel that Southend, with the unofficial transfer embargo that they've got, which is unofficially official, chatting to one of their fans about the situation there, they've got a squad of under 23s. And I think his aim is, if we can survive this season, see this season out, then we'll have done well. So I think they're the 2. But, I mean, there's others. I think, like Carlisle, you always kind of, they've released a couple of their better players that maybe attitudes weren't right. So it's whether they can replace.
They've made some good signings as well, like Carlisle.
Yeah, I think they'll be all. I think they'll be looking proper mid-table. But if it doesn't work, if it doesn't click early on, they could be looking. And then the other club that I think could be involved in a bit of a relegation battle, maybe Morecambe. Haven't really seen much of who they've signed yet.
They've. I think they've made some decent business. They had a lad called Adam Phillips who they had on loan from Burnley in the second half of last season, and he did really well for them. I can understand the general thinking that they'd normally be towards the bottom of the table, but like some people like Ben Pringle, who did well in League One for Rotherham a few seasons ago. Harry Davis was someone that Grimsby might have kept. So I think Morecambe are doing okay in terms of transfer.
So we'll look, I think, if teams aren't mentioned, we'll assume that they're going to be the kind of mid-table. But who do you see battling for promotion and playoffs? I mean, for me, let's start with Bolton. I can see them finishing playoffs, not automatics.
Okay.
I know that's controversial, and please, when this is put on Facebook, Bolton fans, don't shoot me down for it. But I think they've got a very good team. They've got signed some very good players. They've signed some very good League One players, and I think there is a difference in football, and I think it does take players a bit of time to adjust and get used to League Two football. But I just think that they are going to need a bit of time to gel with the disjointed pre-season that clubs are going to have.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, I think the big one for them is signing Ian Doyle, who was by some distance League Two's top scorer last season. And I think, good system, he's the perfect coach.
Totally. I mean, you can see him being the top scorer again this season, because I think if Bolton do hit the ground running, they're going to be firing, and they're going to. I think when they win, they will really win games. But yeah, that's my little. When we have this chat next season and you talk about Crew getting promoted, I'll hopefully be able to smile and go, "Told you, Bolton, to get playoffs."
Yeah.
I think I'd like to think that we will be in the playoff mix.
Yeah.
I think our second half of season form showed that we can compete. I think beating Exeter 3-1 the final day of the season.
Northampton as well. Like Port Vale was a good performance too. You've done it against some of the good teams, haven't you?
Yeah. So I think if we can continue making the right signings, which we haven't gone all out yet. I think Clark's finding the right people, and he knows what he's got and what he needs to fit that, rather than wholesale changes. Talking to Port Vale, I think they're going to be there and thereabouts. I think their season form, take away the distraction of a cup run, and I think they could have probably been in the playoffs last season.
Yeah, that's very possible. I think that the thing with Vale is they've got a manager in John Askew who kind of sticks with the same formation and often the same set of players, so they've got quite a lot of stability there, which I think has really helped them in the main.
Yeah, I'm quite a fan of that. I think setting your stall out and go, this is how we're going to play, beat us. I mean, I say that with Darryl Clark, who will change formations 3 times in a game, but for him, we started to settle, and once we started to settle, we were playing better.
What do you think your best formation is?
How long have you got? I think our most successful towards the end of the season was 4-2-3-1, which could also be a 4-3-3 dependent on how you look at it. I think we need a back four. The 3 central defenders with wing backs did work at times last season, but I felt that it meant that we were lacking up top. So I think
with that, like, you've got Callum, Cockrell, Mollett, Isaac Jewell, who I think would be contended to play on the left of the back three, and then Nurse, who might be better as a wing back than as a left back. So the fact you've still got Jules and Cockrell, Mollett, and you've brought in Nurse could suggest that Clark's looking at wing backs next.
I feel that will be. I feel that 4-2-3-1 will be maybe our preferred choice, but I feel that is a solid plan B, because Cockrell Mollett can play as a left back in a back four, as can Jules if we needed him, along with Nurse. But I think the signing of Nurse, it'd be interesting to see who comes at the right back position, because Clark was very open in saying that he was looking for an attacking right back, because he sees Cameron Norman as more of a defensive right back. So I think there's definitely a kind of a 3-5-2 or 5-3-2, however you describe it, option there. But for me, I think Probably if I was picking a formation to start with day one of the season, I'd go 4-2-3-1 because I feel that with our attacking players and our speed at top, that is what's going to cause teams problems.
Yeah, with Lavery, McDonald, Hogan, and Gordon.
Gordon, yeah, Gordon,
attack.
yeah, and then Holden as well coming in, and whoever we get at the right wing. But if we start with Jack Nolan at right wing, he's still very quick and fits that sort of style. I think I'd like to see Exeter up there again and Cheltenham, because I feel that Cheltenham really did build a really good team and pushed on, and I'd like to see them back up there because I also feel they're quite a similar type of club to Walsall. They're quite family orientated. They do like to bring their youth through. They like to sign young players, and I feel that they're quite similar to us.
I think with Exeter as well, like if Ollie Watkins leaves Brentford for Aston Villa for 25 million, I think was the sort of touted fee. That means Exeter get possibly around £5 million as a sell-on. So that could be pretty massive. That could be an absolute game changer for them in terms of what they can do, especially in the current climate.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're still waiting on the Troy Deeney 20%.
Oh, I know. I was so gutted for you because there was a time after Leicester had just won the title, and there was a possibility that Leicester might go for something like 30 million for Troy Deeney for Watford, and I don't know exactly how much that would have been in terms of like.
I think we've got 25%.
Oh, damn it!
Yeah, I'm
so gutted for you, mate, because that would have been massive for the club, wouldn't it?
Oh, huge. And then the latest one is Rico Henry, who we'd have got $1 million for him getting promoted with Brentford. I did.
Might happen next year.
It might. Well, he might go. He might be sold. And we've got a sell on with him, which is rumoured to be 20%. But I mean, at the moment, we take, if any clubs want to, this is a plea to any Premier League club that wants to buy Troy Deeney for 4 or 5 million, and then we can have $1 million. Like it really, that's quite cheap for Deeney. So there you go.
Yeah, if you give £2 a month, you'll help.
Just a little bit a month. But yeah, we've been quite lucky with we've got some really good sell-on incentives in place, and then it just doesn't seem to work out for us.
And also, like, I mean, you kind of had under Dean Smith, you're very good at kind of developing players through the academy, and then I suppose like it seemed like John Whitney was open to giving the youngsters, but he didn't really have the same quality, and then I suppose Dean Keith seemed a bit reluctant to bring the youngsters through. So you'd hope that with Alfie Bates coming through and Sam Perry's supposed to be pretty good as well, Cockerell Mollett as well, hopefully you might see a bit more of that under Darrell Clarke, because it seems like something that's maybe gone away from the club a little bit over the last few years.
Massively. I mean, under Dean Keats, it was quite well known that we weren't playing reserve academy league football. The academy was, the under-18s were, but there was no it's the Midlands Alliance League, is it, that a lot of ours it's sort of like the Reserve League or the Central Alliance League or something like that, which was one of the first things that Darrell Clarke did, is he put that back in, because it's key. If you've got young players that want to get that bit of a bridge in the gap between academy and first team, you need those reserve matches that still has a bit of competition about it. And Clarke put that straight in. And again, with injuries, you need players to be getting back to fitness in those sorts of games, not putting them in the squad and going, there you go, hopefully you're okay.
Yeah. Go on.
We hired Miguel Lera. I'm really sorry if I've butchered his name pronunciation there, but he's been key at bringing up the players that you mentioned. I mean, Alfie Bates was in and around the team pre-season, but like the likes of Sam Perry, good luck to him. Yesterday, a striker called Luke Pearce moved to Southampton's academy.
Oh, right, okay.
years old, but it's great that Walsall are getting players that are going to these Premier League academies. Miguel has really turned the academy around, and I'm excited to see the prospects. I think there's been 4 or 5 that have been training with the first team since they've gone back, and you kind of go, good.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'd kind of like to touch on another area of the club, and I suppose it feels like it's been a long time since you've had a good manager-chairman combination, because you've had Jeff Bonser in for quite a long time. So even when you've had good managers like Dean Smith, and obviously I don't know whether coincided with the Graydon area, but Bonser, but certainly it seems like it's been sort of 15 years at least since you've had that good combination. And with Pomlet, who seems to be pretty open to engagement and sort of attending fan forums and things like that, and Darryl Clark, who's won back-to-back promotions with Bristol Rovers, do you think you've got the right combination in place to sort of progress long term?
Absolutely, 100%. I don't know whether, since I've been a Walsall fan, Bonser's regularly attended games. It was very well known that he wasn't going to attend matches, that he wouldn't be there. We didn't really see or hear from him. It was quite well known that the journalists were trying to get interviews with him, as journalists do, and it was a flat out no. Like the fans forums, there was 2 of the guys who work at the club, Dan Mole and Stephen Gamble, who are the sort of chief exec roles and club secretary roles, and they do a lot more than just what is written as their job title. They would go and effectively have pre-answered questions. They'd come out with the same sort of thing that isn't them saying that it's what's been approved.
Yeah.
But going back to Jeff's, like when Jeff became chairman, he did save the club, and to give him credit, he has consistently kept Walsall as a club that made a profit, that always kept its house in order, and that was sustainable. And I think looking at the way that clubs are going now, he did set us up for that. Many will criticise that he didn't spend enough, and under Dean Smith, it's reported that Dean Smith has come out since leaving and said that his transfer budget and his budgets in general, year on year, were getting lower and lower and lower, which isn't the way that you can build a successful team, and yet somehow Dean Smith did it. But no, Lee Pomlet and Darryl Clark coming in last season was exactly what was needed. The fans feel part of the club again. We've got higher ticket sales and higher shirt sales than the last couple of years. And just in general, the fans are trying to do as much for the club as possible, which would have happened if Bonser was still in charge.
Yeah, that's great, really. I mean, I remember, I wasn't actually at Darryl Clark's first press conference, but I remember a few people tweeting after spoke to the fans for the first time, and the general response was, "Yeah, we've got a good one here." So it took a while for him to get his feet under the desk and kind of establish a core of players who share his mentality, who he feels he can trust, which I think is important to him as a manager. But it seems like that core is in place now, so it could be an exciting couple of seasons ahead, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is the right man for us. He's the sort of personality and character that needs to lift the mood at the club and lift the sort of hangover from relegation. And I think that was what made the losing spell difficult, was because it was so close to the start of the season that things had changed, and it was like, oh great, new players, new everything, and then it was not working and we were losing, and it's that sort of bringing back memories of getting relegated.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that must be.
I'd give their reign so far probably a 6 out of 10
Okay.
because of how long it took to get things better. But if you, that's the only reason it's as well not kind of in your eights is because we did only finish 12th last season. So I think it's difficult to say that they had a really like blinding job.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping in 12 months' time to have given them a much better score.
Yeah, let's hope so.
But I think going back a bit, do you see with the kind of salary caps and players moving within the league system now that clubs will be reliant on those sell-on fees and those sorts of deals coming to fruition?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's actually going to be massive to be able to develop. But I think you're looking at clubs that maybe there is a salary cap in League One and League Two, and I think maybe clubs, instead of spending an extra bit on wages for players, maybe invest more in their academy and then try to produce players and then sell them and then hopefully have a good sell-on fee. So you not only get money for them when they've improved, you also get a bit more money for them when they've improved further. They do improve. So I think that's kind of the model a lot of clubs have got to go down, because we don't know what the climate is. This is a massively uncertain time. We don't know, are we going to get in a second spike? When the fans going to be back in at full capacity? I mean, it's hard enough when as many fans as the capacity is allowed back in to get people to come to lower league football matches, which I find a real shame. And clubs were struggling before this pandemic, so it's a very uncertain time. And I think having those sell-on fees is going to be massive going forward, because they need a slice of that TV revenue from higher up.
I think what you said about attendances is so true. The fact that they stopped with the trials, the government stopped the trials of having fans at sporting events was a bit of a blow. But so Lee Pomlet and the other guys I mentioned have been doing a lot of videos throughout lockdown and while the season's not on, and they've been regularly updating. And there was a video that came out last week, I think, where Dan Mole spoke about how many fans that they are working to get back, and they've been working with local authorities and the powers that are making these decisions. And they're hoping that they can get in around 3,500, which would mean that all season ticket holders can get in, and then a few. But they're currently doing surveys to see what bubbles people are in, whether it's two different addresses, but it's actually one family. So I think what they're trying to do is, and I'm sure other clubs are doing this, is maximise it. Because if you say you have to see 33% of your capacity, but they have to be this many apart, blah, blah, blah. If you can then go back to these authorities and go, well, these 6 people, instead of taking up this much space, they're like that instead, because they're all one household or they're all one bubble, you might be able to get a few more people through the door. But we've also said that we're going to look at using the car parks where there's big open spaces to potentially look at catering facilities outside the stadium.
Oh, that's a good idea, yeah.
We're fortunate that we've got a lot of space around the ground that people can come in and out of. There's space under the walkways. You're not sort of in a Accrington situation where you're going through houses sort of thing.
Yeah.
The land, there's quite a lot there, and if they can use that, which is normally the away parking, if you haven't got away fans, you've got this piece of land that's not being used. So clubs will find their own ways of making money and to try and do it. But if you could get like pop-up bars and things like that you can keep social distancing, it's going to be so big for clubs to keep that extra revenue in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you've got to say well done to the club for actually engaging with the EFL and actually trying to find sort of solutions in less than ideal circumstances. So yeah, everything I hear about Leigh Pomlet is very positive, and I think seems like he's helping a lot of things that they've done really well.
Yeah, he's a professional businessman, and I think what he's done well is, or at least it seems it, is that he will ask those questions. He's been in boardrooms for big companies. That's his day-to-day job. So going into the EFL and saying, "What's going on? We need answers." He's that character that will go in and feel that he can say it, which you need that. And I think he's not the only League Two chairman to be like that. I know that he said, he obviously doesn't name clubs, but he said that him and others have spoken and that they are trying to put pressure on the EFL to come up with certain guidelines and clarity and things. So I think it's good as a league if clubs are working together to, for one common goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a slightly different direction. I just wondered, in terms of the goalkeeping situation at Walsall next season, do you expect Liam Roberts to be the number one next year, or do you think someone else will be brought in?
I rewind 6 months, or maybe 7 or 8, given the amount of time we've had off, but I'd say that we needed a keeper that was around his level, that would make his place uncertain, but give him that, if I have a bad couple of games, there is someone who is equally as good to come in and take that spot. However, I think given the financial situation, we'll either be loaning someone in or signing a younger prospect.
Rose type.
A Rose type, but I think Rose would have wanted more first team action than he got. I think he only started 4 or 5 league games.
Wow, okay.
It was quite low, especially the second half of the season. He only started 1, I think, since January. But then don't quote me on that but I know it was low. It was lower than really I think the fans even realised. I like Roberts. I like having homegrown players that play for us. But I think he does need someone behind him that is going, I'm going to try and get that number 1 jersey from you. And also so it's a fan interview or a fan Q&A that Darryl Clark did. He did say that it was a keeper to push Roberts, which I think means that Roberts will be our number 1, but we'll have someone, I think, like Rose, who, if Roberts was injured, Rose would have come in and everyone would have been like, okay, you wouldn't be worried about your number 2 coming in, which I think sometimes in Leagues 1 and 2, the second choice keeper can be very hit and miss.
Yeah.
But no, I think Roberts will be number 1. Number 1 choice. Something we haven't talked about is the newbies, Barrow and Harrogate. What do you know about them? What do you kind of feel their ambitions for the season will be?
I would imagine it'll be consolidation. I've done a bit of digging on Barrow, and it seems like pretty much every player you speak to speak about Barrow fans are kind of they're sort of praised, which is quite right because they won the title for them last season. But I suppose as a neutral, it's kind of quite difficult to see how that's going to translate into League Two, which players are going to make the step up well and make the best case themselves, and which players might not. So that's a bit difficult to decipher. One player I do really like at Harrogate is Josh Falkingham. I don't know if you watched the National League playoff final. I thought he had a great game and he's really energetic midfielder. I think he's their captain as well. So I feel like he's the best new player coming up into it.
Yeah, I did one of these videos with the Barrow fan and called Taylor, and he said that the thing that he's worried about, or not worried, but has kind of rocked the boat, is the change of management. He feels that the board, he absolutely adores the board, and said that they've been open. They identified, it's Damien Dunn, isn't it?
David Dunn, yeah. I mean, as a Birmingham fan, it was in my first year I had a season ticket at Blaze. watched David done, and he was very good. Like when he played, unfortunately got injured a bit and didn't quite fulfill his potential with that. So I do have a soft spot for him as a manager. He had obviously had a very difficult situation time at Oldham. He's obviously had a bit of coaching at Blackpool. I spoke to him actually at the Wickham game in late January, and like he's a good player. It was great to chat to him, but like, is he going to how good is he as a manager? I don't know, and I guess we're about to find out. But yeah, I think Barrow would be in a better situation if they still had Ian Evans at the helm.
Apparently the board had identified Dunn very early, and effectively he was the one that they wanted. So there is that. If you trust your board, then they obviously have seen something that will keep it the same, but also freshen up the team. But I think it is difficult if you've gone up as champions, you've had a really good season, and then your manager moves. I think it'd be
Macclesfield
watching the Barrow Bolton game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just going to be interesting, isn't it? Because actually, the last 3 National League title winners have started life in League Two with a new manager. Because Macclesfield did it when John Ashley went to Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
Obviously, the terrible situation the year after with Justin Edinburgh at Leyton Orient. And of course, Ian Everett's been poached by Bolton, and I suppose Orient just did incredibly well in the circumstances. Macclesfield found it a bit more difficult. So if you, yeah, it's hopefully Farrow, they've made the right choice.
Yeah, I mean, many of my fans know that, or many Vital fans know that there is the Walsall Orient derby in our household. So last summer, I think they were the first League Two club to go back to training this season, and I'm not surprised by that because they had such a disjointed last pre-season for matters beyond their control and for absolutely devastating circumstances, that it doesn't surprise me that they have got in as soon as they could and are like, right, this is the pre-season now, and this is the League Two campaign that we wanted last season. But I think they'll be, I think they could probably go top half this year.
Okay, that's that's an interesting shout. I mean, they've got quite a big squad in place already, I would say. I imagine they'll bring Cisse, who they had in the second half of the season, back. But they've already got him, all right. Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine them making an awful lot of other signings. I mean, I don't know what your girlfriend thinks about their transfer business, but yeah, I
and then that's it, and play him wherever he wants to play.
Yeah.
I think they need a centre-back because one of theirs moved to Blackpool, and potentially
Petita, yeah.
And then potentially there's still question marks over one of the strikers, Raul Sotiriou, because he's had interest from other clubs and he's yet to commit fully. He missed the first bit of training and then has come back to the squad. Weirdly, as soon as they found out Yaya Toure was training with them, he kind of then came back a day or two later, and you're like, okay.
Yeah. That's interesting, actually, because I watched Orient against Colchester on Boxing Day, and they lost 3-1 that one. But Sotiriou made a massive difference off the bench. I think they think of him as kind of like left-sided forward in a 4-3-3. But yeah, I think they rate him quite highly there. So it could be one to watch if it's at Orient or somewhere else.
Yeah, I think if he goes, that's when they'll recruit to replace him. But apart from that, they've kept a stable squad, which I'm glad about, because I think last season was such an unknown, and there was so much up in the air. And it was really when things sort of settled, when Embleton was appointed, you could see that their form improved. I mean, I think they went unbeaten, or like a winning run at home of like 6 or 7 games at the end of the season. So as long as they do that, but we can take 6 points from them, I'll be happy.
Yeah, just make sure you told your girlfriend after the final whistle, not when you won the lap.
We was walking around the stadium after we lost. Me and my mates just like, here we go. And the joy on New Year's Day of it was. But no, it's what lower league football's about, though, isn't it? sort of, it's those rivalries that you get nowhere else in football. And I think, yeah, it's great. It's great. One team I want to talk to you about, Salford. What do we think about Salford and how this whole thing's going to affect them? Because, like you touched on with the last few National League champions, I think it's difficult to really know how teams from the National League will get on in League Two. Salford had a lot of money. No one expected them to be anywhere near the bottom half of the league. Like we said with Orient, they had a very disrupted and tragic summer. So no one really expected them to do anything in terms of pushing for playoffs. It was more like a consolidation. And then, like you said, Tranmere did back-to-back promotions, and we've seen it with the likes of Luton as well. But what do we think about Salford? Is it going to be their year to go up, or are they going to remain in League Two?
Well, I'm not going to be drawn into a prediction at this stage, but I think there will be an expectation on them to at least challenge for promotion, because they've got in someone like Ian Henderson, who's actually the top League One goal scorer in the previous decade. So I think they've got a good mix of strikers who all have different qualities, which I think could help them. But I still think there's a bit of a way to go in terms of the recruitment between now and the start of the season.
I think looking at Salford from an outside point of view is that they've got all this money. They can bring in much better players than really most of League Two. The only thing is that they do turn over players from transfer window to transfer window. And I think it's not having that settled side that will hold them back. I think if they got these really good players, gave them a season to gel, to work together, and then improve where they feel they needed to improve, they'd be in a much stronger position than chopping and changing because they've got the money to.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point.
I think that might just about do us. Oh, Bradford. Bradford's again another big club. They've lost a couple of players, and I think was it yesterday that they lost Vaughan to Tranmere. I think that's a big move.
Well, I think I think the issue for them is that they've had quite a few strikers who are pretty similar. So they had James Vaughan, Lee Novak, Clayton Donaldson, and Curtis Guthrie. They've all been on there. Guthrie could get go, but I think with all of them, neither of them are very quick. So actually, it wouldn't be the worst thing if they kept hold of Novak and Donaldson. And brought in one or two forwards who can actually run in behind. I think that's maybe what they missed at times last season.
Yeah, I can't think of any of the teams that we haven't covered that I'd like to talk about. I think that just about does us. We'll look forward to your pre-season prediction. Let me know when it's out, and we'll definitely. Obviously, you're going to put Walsall top three, so we'll have a look at the rest of the league.
Well, this is a given Roberto, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on, and hopefully we can maybe do another one of these come January towards the end of the transfer market and have a bit of another chat through the league then.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
No, great to speak to you, and hopefully we can catch up at a Sadler's game at some point when fans are allowed back in.
Maybe Walsall versus Blues in the cup.
Let's just hope it's in the cup.
Yeah. Or next season, both teams in League One. That'd be a big. Right. Always a pleasure. We'll speak soon.
Yeah, likewise, mate. Take care.